Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news at 6 on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. India and European Union signed 3 agreements after summit-level meeting. Terrorism figures prominently in the talks. Delegations demand immediate termination of any support to terrorist groups. GST Council meets in Delhi to make structural changes in new national tax regime. Council expected to suggest relief measures to calm jittery businesses complaining about new tax regime. Centre makes biometric identification Aadhaar mandatory for all post office deposits. PPF, National Savings Certificate Scheme and Kisan Vikas Patra's deadline is the 31st of December 2017. An international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons wins Nobel Peace Prize. Nobel Committee says decision comes at a time when the risk of nuclear weapons being used is greater than it has been for a long time. Well, India and the European Union have decided to increase cooperation in development and business. They also decided to come forward to cooperate within each other on climate change. They also discussed many issues of global and regional importance.
European Union authorities on Friday held their summit-level meeting in Delhi with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Chairman of European Council Donald Francisek Tusk and European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker led a delegation of 28 European nations. 3 agreements were signed after the summit. They included one on cooperation in scientific research, a loan of €300 for Bangalore Phase 2 metro project, and cooperation in establishing an interim secretariat of International Solar Alliance, mooted by India in the last climate change summit held in Paris. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also asked European countries to reduce prices of green technologies.
पिछले वर्ष के हमारे एजेंडा 2020 और 13th शिखर सम्मेलन में लिए गए निर्णयों के क्रियान्वयन की आज हमने समीक्षा की। आतंकवाद के खिलाफ मिलकर काम करने और इस विषय पर अपने सुरक्षा सहयोगों को बढ़ाने पर हम दोनों सहमत हैं। इस विषय पर हम न सिर्फ द्विपक्षीय स्तर पर अपना सहयोग मजबूत करेंगे, बल्कि वैश्विक मंच पर भी अपना सहयोग और समन्वय बढ़ाएंगे।
Terrorism figured prominently in the talks between the delegations. While the European delegation supported India's concerns, they also demanded immediate termination of any financial or arms to support terrorist groups.
We have agreed to develop our dynamic trade and investment relations, and that we have agreed to step up cooperation on global and regional issues. Let me briefly touch on some of these topics. We adopted a joint declaration on counter-terrorism in which we agreed to counter violent extremism and radicalization, particularly online, and to deal effectively with the threat posed by foreign terrorist fighters, terrorist financing, and arms supply.
India and the European delegations also discussed the scope of yet-to-be-finalized free trade agreement. The European Union delegation also expressed hope for better collaboration in information technology, but wanted data protection agreement to pave ways for India to be back office for Europe's companies.
This is why I stressed this morning the importance on the need to agree to the highest standards of data protection. Indian companies have specialized in offering back office and IT services to European companies. Many of these services and the jobs that go with them depend on the exchange of data. If India's standards of data protection are converging with those of the European Union will be in a position to recognize the adequacy of India's rules. This is a precondition.
India and European Union are strategic partners, and the delegation had long talks on issues of India's neighborhood, including Pakistan, China, Myanmar and Bangladesh. The European Union hoped that India will be more liberal in sheltering Rohingya refugees.
European Union is coming forward on the issue of terrorism the way India thinks and faces. There is a scope of cooperation in the IT sector also. But much convergence required on the issue of Rohingya crisis that Asian nations are facing. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Television with camera person Sanjay in Delhi.
The GST Council is meeting today in Delhi to discuss and make structural changes in the new national tax regime, acting on feedback and complaints from businesses. Since July 1st, over 23,18,000 new traders registered for the GST, with 11 lakh dealers under the composition scheme. This took the total number to over 85 lakh, including 62.25 lakh traders who migrated from the old VAT and service tax regime. The council is expected to push through relief measures and calm jittery businesses complaining about the new tax regime. The panel is also expected to ease exporters' pain by allowing electronic payment of taxes through virtual currency, while announcing a series of steps for small and medium enterprises. On Wednesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi promised that glitches would be fixed, and he held a meeting with Finance Minister Arun Jaitley and BJP Chief Amit Shah yesterday on the issue. Well, the centre has made biometric identification Aadhaar mandatory for all post office deposits, PPF, National Savings Certificate Scheme and the Kisan Vikas Patra. The deadline to provide the 12-digit unique identification number is December 31st, 2017. The recent move by the government is in continuation with its push for Aadhaar. The government has insisted on quoting Aadhaar for bank deposits, obtaining mobile phones and several other utilities. As many as 135 schemes will be covered under Aadhaar, including the free cooking gas scheme to poor women, kerosene and fertilizer subsidy. Well, an Mi-17 helicopter of the Indian Air Force crashed near Tawang, Arunachal Pradesh on Friday. At least 7 military personnel, including 2 pilots and 2 army men, were killed. The Russian-manufactured helicopter was carrying supplies to a forward post of the Indian Army in the mountainous region. A court of inquiry has been ordered to ascertain the cause of the accident. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has said technology along with managerial excellence can chart a new trajectory for Indian Railways. Inaugurating a 2-day conference, Technological Advancement in Railways and Metro Projects, the Vice President emphasized the need for expansion of Indian Railways. Here's a report.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Friday inaugurated the International Conference on Technological Advancements in Railway and Metro Projects at the Manekshaw Centre in Delhi. The Vice President said Indian Railways need to plan very meticulously for a massive expansion with forward-looking, efficient technologies and innovative practices, especially when investors across the world are eyeing opportunities in India.
With about 8 lakh crore planned investment, opening up of FDI in retail infrastructure and implementation of GST, I am sure the Indian Railways will stand to benefit, particularly in the long-distance transportation in the years ahead. Technology, along with the managerial excellence, can chart a new trajectory. Friends,
the Vice President said new concepts like transit-oriented development should be executed and promoted so as to improve lives of people living around the metro stations.
The government of the day should really understand the meaningful suggestions and start implementing and acting, because mobility, ability, stability, security, safety is required for sustainability.
The Vice President also said that discussions on the economy and GST should go on, and such debates and consultations are always good for democracy. He asserted that in the long run, GST will be beneficial for all.
This is the most revolutionary taxation transformation that is taking place in the country. And in the future, they will really feel happy that such a transformation has taken place in a vast country like India. And that will really help the people.
The Vice President also expressed hope that the discussions in the 2-day conference will provide a fast-track approach to build many state-of-the-art railway systems in India and across the world. The conference was organized by the Defence Infrastructure Planning and Management Council along with the Ministry of Railways, the Ministry of Urban Development and the Niti Aayog. Railway Minister Piyush Goyal and Chairman of the Railway Board Ashwini Lohani were also present on the occasion. With Vikram Singh, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The jailed AIADMK leader VK Shashikala was on Friday granted parole for 5 days by prison authorities in Karnataka. However, Shashikala had sought parole for 15 days to meet her husband, who underwent a liver and kidney transplant at a Chennai hospital. On October 3rd, the prison authorities had rejected her first application on technical grounds for not producing certain requisite documents, after which Shashikala had filed a fresh plea for parole. I beg your pardon. Now, earlier in the day, Shashikala's nephew TTV Dinakaran had arrived at the jail to complete the parole formalities.
Getting the genuineness information, they have verified with the police commissioner about the genuineness of the records submitted along with the parole application. And yesterday being a state government holiday, today morning the sources said from Chennai police commissioner they have received an email stating that imposing certain conditions, they are agreeing for the parole.
The Supreme Court has asked the Election Commission to decide on the AIADMK's two-leaf symbol row by November 10th. The top court was hearing a plea by ousted party leader TTV Dinakaran, who had sought to extend the deadline to settle the dispute. The court also disposed of the petition filed by Dinakaran challenging a Madras High Court order asking the poll panel to decide the election symbol row by October 31st. Dinakaran had sought at least 4 months' time to file documents before the poll panel. Moving on now, the World Bank has called the recent slowdown in the Indian economic growth an aberration. The World Bank said that the slowdown was temporary and mainly due to temporary disruptions in preparation for the GST and will get corrected in the coming months. World Bank President Jim Yong Kim also said that the GST will have a hugely positive impact on the economy. Kim's statement comes ahead of the annual meeting of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank in Washington next week. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will lead the Indian delegation to the annual meeting next week, where the World Bank and the IMF are expected to come out with their new GDP figures and growth projections for India and the rest of the world. Well, according to a PTI report, China has maintained a sizable presence of its troops near the site of the Doklam standoff with India. The news report, quoting sources, has said that China has even started widening an existing road which is at a distance of around 12 kilometers from the area of conflict. An indication of tension between the two countries due to the presence of Chinese forces in the Chumbi Valley in the Doklam Plateau was also given by Chief of Air Staff Air Chief Marshal B.S. Dhanoa on Thursday. There has been territorial dispute between India and Bhutan over Doklam, and India has been staunchly supporting Thimphu over the issue. Troops of India and China were locked in a 73-day-long standoff in Doklam since June 16th after the Indian side stopped the building of a road in the disputed area by the Chinese army. Well, here's a roundup now of some other news from across the country and nationwide. The Central Bureau of Investigation today questioned Tejasvi Yadav in connection with alleged corruption in the award by Lalu of a contract to run 2 IRCTC hotels in 2006. The former Deputy Chief Minister of Bihar has kept 3 notices for questioning in the case before appearing today before the investigation team. Bhawarilal Purohit was sworn in as the 25th Governor of Tamil Nadu today. The Chief Justice of the Madras High Court administered the oath of office to the new governor at Raj Bhavan in Chennai. Governor Purohit is the first full-time governor to be appointed since the completion of the term of K. Rosaya in August 2016. The Supreme Court today asked the centre to respond to a plea challenging the legal provision that a convict would be hanged to death. Now, the plea said that Article 21, right to life of the Constitution, also includes the right of a condemned prisoner to have a dignified mode of execution so that death becomes less painful. petition to reopen and reinvestigate the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi has been accepted by the Supreme Court. The petition filed by Mumbai-based IT consultant Pankaj Padnis claims that the assassination was not the work of just one individual, but an organization was involved in it. Well, it's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
In India, you could get dengue several times because there are 4 viruses of dengue, 1, 2, 3, and 4. This 3-in-1 test actually picks up your dengue fever from day 1 of fever. But even if you ever had dengue fever in your life, like you are perfectly healthy now, if I take a sample from out, I can tell you if you ever encountered dengue. This test now has become a world leader. It has a global presence. It goes to other countries.
Watch Eureka with Dr. Naveen Khanna, Senior Scientist, ICGEB, only on Rajya Sabha television. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, moving on to news on the Rohingya crisis, now described as the biggest humanitarian crisis faced by Asia. Bangladesh, which has given shelter to over 500,000 Rohingya refugees, says the crisis has the potential to destabilize the region. Bangladesh Foreign Secretary Shahidul Haq, who met his Indian counterpart S. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval on Thursday, said that the continuous influx of Rohingya refugees from Myanmar figured prominently during their talks. He also asserted that Bangladesh's position on the issue is clear, that the problem has been created in Myanmar and the solution lies there. He added that Dhaka wants the refugees to return as soon as possible. The United Nations has reiterated its appeal to Myanmar for access to the northern Rakhine state.
Our position is very clear, that the problem has been created in Myanmar and solution has to be found in Myanmar. We can certainly help Myanmar government in solving this problem, but the solution cannot be their stay in Bangladesh. Bangladesh wants that they should go back as soon as possible.
On to the crisis in Spain now. After the suspension of the Catalan parliament by a Spanish constitutional court, police chief of the region, Josep Luis Trapero, was summoned before a judge in Madrid. His force is accused of failing to protect Spanish national police from protesters ahead of the independence referendum on October 1st. The referendum vote was declared illegal under Spanish law and the police had been directed to ban the process. The Catalan police chief and 2 other commanders are being investigated in Madrid on suspicion of sedition against the state. Well, the Nobel Peace Prize for 2017 has been announced, and the winner is an anti-nuclear weapons campaign group, ICAN. Announcing the coveted award for this year, the Nobel Committee chairperson said that the risk of nuclear weapons being used is greater than it has been for a long time, especially with nations like North Korea strengthening their nuclear arsenal. ICAN has been working for the past 10 years for nuclear disarmament.
Against the backdrop of an assertive North Korea and Iran strengthening their nuclear arsenals, the Nuclear Disarmament Group International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons won the Nobel Peace Prize for its decade-long campaign to rid the world of the nuclear threat. The committee said its decision comes at a time when the risk of nuclear weapons being used is greater than it has been for a long time.
The organization is receiving the award for its work to draw attention to the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of any use of nuclear weapons and for its groundbreaking efforts to achieve a treaty-based prohibition on such weapons.
Announcing the award, the Nobel Committee highlighted ICAN's tireless efforts to rid the world of nuclear weapons, especially in an era when North Korean crisis is looming large. ICAN, a coalition of over 300 NGOs, was founded in Vienna in 2007 on the fringes of an international conference on the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Based in Geneva in Switzerland, ICAN has been a key player in adopting a historic nuclear weapons ban treaty signed by 122 countries in July. However, the accord was largely symbolic as none of the 9 known world nuclear powers signed it.
We're working very hard on trying to make nuclear weapons illegal. They are not yet prohibited by a treaty, nuclear weapons. And I think that we're trying to change people's minds. People have been accepting nuclear weapons as legitimate tools for providing security for 70 years now. And we're trying to change the mindset, really, that it's not acceptable to threaten to level an entire city just to keep yourself secure.
The ICAN will receive their prize consisting of a gold medal, a diploma and a check for 9 million Swedish kronor equivalent to $1.1 million at a ceremony in Oslo on the 10th of December, the death anniversary of Alfred Nobel. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, here's a roundup now of some other international news in Global Buzz. 16 people were killed today when a train slammed into a bus that had broken down at a level crossing near Moscow. The bus, which was carrying migrant workers from Uzbekistan, was shunted several hundred meters down the track. The death toll in a suicide attack at a shrine in Pakistan's Balochistan province has increased to 20, with more than 30 others injured. The explosion took place on Thursday evening at the entrance to the Pir Rakhel Shah Dargah in Fatehpur, a small town in Jhalmaksi district, at a time when scores of people had gathered to pray. Kazuo Ishiguro, a Japanese-born British novelist, has won the 2017 Nobel Prize in Literature. Ishiguro was born in 1954 in Nagasaki, Japan, and moved along with his family to England when he was 5 years old. Ishiguro has been a full-time author since his first book, A Pale View of Hills, was published in 1982. Tropical storm Nate killed 7 people in Costa Rica and led to the evacuation of some 5,000 others. Nate sparked heavy downpours in the Central American region, dumping up to 215 liters of rain per square meter in Costa Rica. The storm toppled 41 trees, caused 12 mudslides and flooding in 32 communities. Well, the FIFA Under-17 World Cup will begin from today onwards at the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in New Delhi. Hosts India will face formidable USA at the opening match. India has been drawn into Group A of the World Cup along with the United States, Colombia and Ghana. The hosts will face Colombia on the 9th of October and Ghana on the 11th of October. 24 teams are taking part in the tournament. The tournament will conclude on October 28th. India is hosting the tournament for the first time. The match will start at 8 p.m.
ये देश के लिए खेलना जरूरी है क्योंकि दिस वर्ल्ड कप फर्स्ट टाइम हैपनिंग इन इंडिया, तो एक पता नहीं कब और कभी मिल सकते हैं और नहीं, तो ये पहली बार इंडिया में अंडर-17 वर्ल्ड कप हो रहा है, तो सपोर्टर्स, इंडियन सपोर्टर्स बहुत ज़्यादा सपोर्ट कर रहा है और सेलिब्रिटीज़, तो बस हमारा काम है कि पिच में कल 6 अक्टूबर को हमारा बेस्ट देना.
They're one of the hardest working teams that we've seen. We played them a little over a year ago here in India, and I don't think the score was indicative of the way they played and the way they compete. Our assumption, without having seen them a lot in the last year, is that they have improved. I know they've done a really, tremendous job here trying to use a lot of different resources to look at as many players as possible. And so we have to come to this match with a lot of respect for India.
Well, that's it on this newscast. Do stay tuned for the big picture on the other side of the short break.